I just went back and listened to the conference call for a second time, the quarterly update there. Listened to it live, and then went back just to make sure I didn't hear or miss anything. Also kind of just get a feel on taking the temperature of the room, I guess you would say. Big thing is that there was no major developments or updates, really. I mean that by, well, there was plenty of updates, but there wasn't anything that was groundbreaking or major shifts. Yesterday and the day before, there was the share price spiked up because of them withdrawing an S3. Maybe there's going to be a big announcement on the conference call. No, nothing really. But it had. I mean, I don't want to say it was a nothing burger, and I don't really like using that term, but it did. They did do a great job of, getting us to focus, which was essentially them narrowing their focus on their clinical developments. What's the game plan going forward? I think I have a clear idea what that is. I think most people would. If you don't listen to it a few more times. The big idea is that, which I love, and I've been begging for them to do this for a long time, get something across the finish line. Right? They're narrowing their focus. There's no MS right now. There's no stroke, and they're no more COVID-19. They're working on the clinical holds for HIV. They're working on the Amrex data, doing assessment on that, and they did an assessment. Now they're doing an external review, determine if that data is good enough to pass it for the FDA. Obviously, they need to know that if they're going to even go through with that. So it seems like they have a game plan, narrowing their focus, narrowing their efforts, narrowing the cash. Everything's getting pushed into a point, and can we get something across the finish line? That way, we have de-risked leronlimab. We proved that it can be a commercial product. Well, I shouldn't say a commercial, an approved product for the FDA, and that again kind of just de-risks the rest of the pipeline efforts. Now, they're still dealing with the DOJ, FDA, shareholder lawsuits. Still have a lot of work to be done there, I'm sure, and that's things like that are not just like, a handshake and everything's all we're done with, like we're sorry. You got that, stuff like that takes forever. But there's still quote unquote, I don't want to say, there shouldn't say quote unquote, but in air quotes, you'd say there's lots to work on. There's a lot of things they need to do. But the big thing that is, I would take away is that the narrowing of what they're going to be doing, they're focusing on obviously getting the HIV across the finish line, combination, see what the monotherapy, I'm not sure what they're going to do with the PrEP. In terms of their focus beyond HIV, they're going towards the cancer or oncology and NASH efforts. For oncology, it looks like they're going colorectal cancer, CRC, and then a variety of different indications for breast cancer. The big one that seemed like Cyrus, the new CEO, is really taking a look at is NASH. The NASH trial did hit primary and secondary endpoints. The primary, I think, was proton density fat. Yeah, was it PDF? Yeah, proton density fat fraction, which is obviously the percent, the fat in the liver. And then I know the one, the CT one, that's fibrosis. They hit those, so there's something to be said there. In my previous articles on Seeking Alpha, and I think I even did that, was speaking about it in a previous video, which is the big thing about NASH. And it's not coming from a clinical situation, but most people that have NASH, or even just fatty liver disease, but especially NASH, not only is their liver a problem, but chances are if you're in that situation, you have other issues. And so there's been a lot of drugs. I don't want to say there's a lot of drugs. There's several other drugs that are going through the pipeline or going through a regulatory process. They look great. There's some that are doing awesome. And the big concern for them is when they work, do they destroy? What is these, or is it something that's tolerable? Can somebody be on this? Does it do enough work without hurting the person? It's the balance there, which is are we actually doing some positive movement on the liver without hurting the liver? Can the person tolerate the drug without, basically like, I can't take this, I'm having too much, GI problems, heart issues, whatever, blood sugar. There's plenty of things that could be going wrong if your liver's not working correctly, or if it's just too strong or toxic. This is where, leronlimab could have a major, I shouldn't say that, but could have a slight edge on some of these other therapies, especially if it's something that, because they've shown it, demonstrated it with their HIV, which obviously immunocompromised. If you can keep somebody on an immunocompromised drug for years, right, without any major issues, that should be, I don't want to say good enough, but that should give us an indication that these people who have fatty liver disease, or has developed into NASH, they probably should be able to stay on leronlimab for a prolonged period of time. And if it's something that can at least put the brakes and slightly start backing it up over, as long as things aren't getting worse and we're starting to back it up, that's a positive thing. And that might be the best way to get some of these people that have developed fatty liver and NASH, is to back them off rather than just trying to strip it out. So that I agree with that situation, or that approach. And it's a huge, NASH is completely untapped at this point. Again, there's plenty of other drugs right now that are getting deeper in development. I'm not sure if they'll win the race. Who knows who will. Maybe CytoDyn can push all their chips into this and maybe not be the first one across, but maybe the best one across. And maybe it's something else they can prove that it works in combination with other ones. Who knows? But anyway, moving on. I had a couple people send me messages about what do I think about a few things that were said towards the end in terms of questions. Let's actually go to the one which is, do I think the Amarex data is a problem? And I'm going to say yes. It was obviously at first, and I don't say it's a red flag that they had to send it out to an external review, because I think they're going to, just make sure that everything was good. And I know they did an internal audit, but it's obviously smart to do an external audit to make sure that someone else says, yeah, this looks solid. But the question was really, if it's bad and they can't use it, what are they going to do? Do the whole entire trial over again? Now, that would basically, as a combination, obviously, as a monotherapy, might be in general better, but you want the combination as well. So I don't think it's worth canning it. But the issue there was, who's going to pay for it? Now, Amarex would have to pay for it, right? I wouldn't say they have to, but that would be what you're going to want to do. Are you going to get that money from Amarex? And then a related question was, someone asked me, do I think Amarex fudged it? Do I think they sabotaged it? I have no clue. The company has a history of, getting things through the finish line, running quality trials. Why'd they mess this one up? If they did. That's the thing. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that they did already, but what's the issue here? So it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't see why you. Anyway, so that's going to be something we got to keep an eye on. What's going to be the ultimate outcome of the combination data? Because if it is not good, then they have to throw it out, and I shouldn't say throw it out, but they have to do the whole thing all over. Even if they were to can it, there has to be some sort of compensation. I mean, there's how much it should be approved. If it is bad, right, it should be on the market already. So very interesting. So that's could be. I mean, who knows how much money they can sue for, or what's going to be going on. I think fingers crossed for everybody involved is that the data's good. They can submit it and hopefully get this thing on the market. Now the other question I had was, about them with Samsung. Yeah, well, I don't know the numbers at this point. Maybe I'll have to go dig for it, but I think they're going to have to start throwing these vials out at some. I mean, so many they've made, which I don't know. It stinks because it's obvious that towards the end there, Nader was trying to figure out any way to basically get leronlimab into people. I shouldn't say that. Trying his best to get it to different countries, get different trials set up as much as possible. Because time was ticking on, and selling it in some way. People paying for the leronlimab, but especially with COVID, that was gonna. I mean, that could have worked, but COVID slowed up. It became Omicron. The virus is not deadly anymore. I shouldn't say that. It's not as deadly. Not enough people in the hospital. So if you are running a trial now that's been running for 6 or 8 months, and you might have had your first half of your patients enrolled might be hitting statistically significant endpoints, but the last half isn't, because Omicron's not really COVID anymore, really. It's not COVID-19. It's not the native virus. It's not any of the terrible variants that we had early on, Delta. And I mean, I've gone over this several times, which is a virus does not want to kill. And it doesn't even really want you to be, in bed that long. It's just when it makes that first jump is when it's super virulent and it's doing damage. But then once it realizes, the virus is not a living thing, but as it gets, adjusts to the human body through, each generation of each new infection, it becomes more mild. So it can spread more. It can keep you upright for longer. You become infectious, but you're feeling fine for several more days before you start feeling sick. So thus you're spreading the virus even more. That's its goal. It wants to survive. It doesn't want to kill. And the initial virus killed. So now severe COVID, people with severe COVID maybe might need leronlimab because they're probably the sickest of the sick people, not necessarily because they have COVID, but because their bodies are in probably a fairly deteriorated state in terms of being immunocompromised or have several, terrible comorbidities that are making them hospitalized, or they're old. But anyway, so there's no I mean, I guess they couldn't just get rid of it quick enough, and now they're throwing stuff away. Still have to make payments to Samsung because they need somebody to make it. I mean, if this thing does get approved, they're going to need somebody, and it's going to make thousands of units. They get shipped out right away. You're going to need somebody the size of Samsung to make it. So we still need that contract if this is going to go anywhere. Moving on, let's take a look at the chart. Finished today around 60, dipped a little bit here. Nothing clear on the chart to say that we're going to... Yeah, I mean, we're above this anchored... Oh, that's the... No, never mind. That's the daily VWAP. So we're above that. Still pretty far from the anchored VWAP, 200-day EMA. Kind of no man's land. Kind of, like I said in the last video, we need to get above 65 to have a shot at anything moving any higher, and that probably goes 65 to about 75. Yeah, once we run the 200-day EMA and have this anchored VWAP from the high here, probably going to run into significant resistance. But kind of get this double bottom setup here. You get the high, you get above the high formation. You might get some people stepping in here. Angle of attack does tell me up. And this is, you know, this is a good spot for it to stop for a second. I mean, you got to, like again, I was pointing out in the previous video, you have a lot of volume right here sticking out. You got, obviously there's some near term too. So whoever's willing to sell here is probably going to do it. I mean, that was what, a week ago. So they're probably, if they're still there, they're probably still willing to sell at this point, despite, you know, some not positive updates, but nothing that's going to move the needle. We should probably not see a spike tomorrow. My suggestion is, or inclinations to the downside, as people that were excited a couple days ago down near 45 are probably going to take their money and run. In general, am I bullish on the updates? Yeah, because it's a lot of things that I wish happened over a year ago. Stop digging a mile wide, inch deep. Let's switch that to a inch wide, a mile deep. Get things across the finish line. What's going to make the money? People want to buy out. Prove that this drug is worth the buyout. Because that's what we have. I mean, there's, like I was talking about in the previous video, we have the potential for the gene therapy situation, but you know, let's not, I mean, that's great, but that's over the horizon right now. Right? We need to find something that we can swim to. Where can we get this, or direct the ship towards? We need to get off. Gotta get some money. Once we have some revenue coming in, we can start thinking about the bigger, grander things. Plus, if this really does work in those other indications, several other cancer oncology indications, does this work for MS? Does this work for stroke? Is there something this could use and work for infectious diseases and COVID? We need money coming in to fund that, right? And if they are going to try to raise money through dilution, let's not do it at 50 cents. Let's do it at several dollars. So we're not doing $200 million at 50 cents a share. The share price will be permanently stuck down here until it gets reverse split, which in OTC doesn't really have to happen. But anyway, point being, you know, if we get something across the finish line, we get some revenue coming in. They have at least enough data in several different drug or indications right now that maybe someone comes knocking on the door, hands them a piece of paper with a nice dollar amount on it, because they know that it works in this. There's some revenue that can be instantly, thrown into their. They can report some growth with it, and then they can point to their shareholders about what this drug can do. All right, long video. I apologize. So, in summary, no major updates, narrowing the focus. Still have lots of these issues up in the air. I did not get any like amazing time frames or expected dates. It was mostly a feel-good thing. But I can tell you this. Actually, this might be the best thing. Is after hearing that conference call, although it was really about nothing major, it's not the charismatic it's the pragmatic. We're not hearing it's not exuberance. It's just it's the pragmatic approach, which is what this needs. If it is this good, you can't be scattered-brained. You got to be just, let's get it done, and then we move on to the next. Black and white, basically. That's great. Night and day now, too. All right, so I'll leave it there. For us, I don't think it's worth putting in our orders at the buy threshold. I'll keep probably some in that buy target area, but it's probably going to take some time. We still have some steep raise coming off here, so even if we might be out until like end of the year, probably before. If this fades below towards the end of the year, you might find a nice setup below the buy threshold that might be worth something. Where's this sucker coming from? I can't believe that this is even still a thing. Look how steep these guys are. Holy cow! What's that coming off? How long ago did I write that one in? So that's the big boy. Oh yeah, it's coming off the COVID. Yeah, so there's the COVID high, way up there. Was that $10, right? Yeah, man, that was one of the days where I was like, it's getting close to $10. I'll sell some. Little did I know. So there's one of the tricks, right? Which is when you get the monthly RSI coming down and the daily RSI is overshooting. That's a good time to pull the trigger on the sell. And every time it basically does it with this ticker. It did it again. Yeah, that was same thing here. Declining monthly, rising daily, sell. Now, where does that leave us here? Which is the RSI is rising. So now we look for the opposite, which is when the RSI is rising. It's about flat now. Hasn't really done much, right? So we're up. So now, as we're getting a rising with the dropping daily. Rising monthly with the dropping falling daily. That's where we can get these spots. So these were good spots to hit the buy button. Maybe this is just, a positive update with some technical. Maybe I'm wrong. Might be on the near term we see a drop. What would that be? Maybe a drop down to 51 and bounce off that. We'll see. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Good luck.